And as always, I hope you're having a marvelous day. I'm Justin Underwood, your marvelous mortgage guy. And here we have James Douglas.
The not so marvelous mortgage
stop.
guy. I'm not a mortgage guy. No. Thank you, Justin.
You had a week to work on your name.
Look, it's work in progress. It'll be all right.
That's all right. Well, thank you guys for watching today. We've got a really fun topic where we're going to talk about housing types or types of houses and why that's important.
Absolutely. And so before we get started, let's talk about, we're not talking about those types of houses. Like, we're not talking about styles.
Yeah,
like
not styles.
Not ranch style or Acadian style or whatever. We're
West
talking
Monroe
about
style?
construction types.
Okay, got it. Construction types. So this is like the structure of the house, primarily associated with probably the foundation being the biggest delineator.
Yes, we'll talk, because there will be a little bit difference in the modular mobile manufactured.
That was going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be educational for some people. And also it's going to give you a very clear, or hopefully a more clear picture of what's going on in the market. So.
Yeah, so people call me and I'll be talking to them and I'll say, hey, look, what kind of house are you looking for to get financed?
Yep.
And they're like, what do you mean? Just a house? I'm like, well, depending on the type of home, it dictates the type of financing.
Very much. Well, more than the rest of us. But definitely there are certain, and we may get to some of those this morning, that you're going to have special financing for.
Yeah, you really do. And so why don't we just get into it? We'll just get into the most common home type that we see.
All right. What's the most common?
We call it site built
Correct.
Is our term.
Yes.
And what that means is that there's another term called stick built. You ever heard that?
No, but it has a bunch of sticks in it. I get it.
And the idea is that it was actually constructed on the site that it was built.
Yes.
So it wasn't there, and it became there because somebody built it there.
Right. They brought all the raw materials in, the brick, the sticks, everything, and built on site. Yeah.
So and there's some gray area there, obviously, because some things can be manufactured somewhere else and brought in and built there, so to speak.
Sure. I mean, if you had trusses and that kind of stuff, they're built elsewhere and brought in, but the house is put together. And
so the general assembly of the house is on site, but there's a permitting aspect to this that impacts the legal definition of site built.
Okay.
And that's because, and now this part of the topic can vary from, just municipality, parish, state, county. So just know that when we're talking about local wisdom here, we're really looking at Ouachita Parish. And I can't say I'm well in tune to the neighboring parishes in terms of how they do it, but I think it's similar. And that's that you have to have, building permits, right?
Yes.
And it requires 3 inspections.
Okay.
It requires what they call a foundation inspection. It requires an open wall inspection, and it requires a closed wall inspection. Well, there are some houses that you can't do that with.
Okay.
Like a mobile home.
Okay.
Manufactured home, not a modular home. But so with a stick-built, site-built home, you got to be able to have those inspections to be able to get a clear certificate of occupancy, which impacts your ability to get utilities and occupy the property and things of that nature.
And buy it.
If
you're getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
That's one of the last things is the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, that CO, as we like to call it. And, with all that, it actually lands a particular way at the courthouse.
Okay.
Because, and I don't want to get out of my depth too much here, but, with taxes and ad valorem taxes in Louisiana, you get a tax exemption for your primary residential real estate that you primarily live in.
Homestead exemption.
Homestead exemption. And so a camper doesn't qualify for homestead exemption because it's a movable item.
What if we take a school bus and renovate it out and make it look like a home?
If it's
The answer's no.
Yeah, the answer's no, but it's actually more about whether or not it's considered permanently affixed.
Correct.
Which they can determine whether it's site built is considered permanently affixed. And you can show that in terms of new construction with your 3 inspections. If it's not permanently affixed, you can legally affix it.
Yes.
With what's called
for a mobile home.
Yeah, it's called the active immobilization.
Well, actually, we should use the correct term. That's manufactured home.
And if you're real fancy, a single section, a multi-section.
Single wide, double wide,
Yeah,
triple wide.
that's what I grew. I grew up in a single wide. So
Yeah.
but yeah, but the reason is a mobile home. You're basically, when it's moved onto the property, you don't have the 3 inspections. You don't have.
Yeah, it's already built when it gets there.
It's already built. The walls are already closed for the most part, and with that, it's considered a mobile home. I'm gonna use that term here: manufactured home, mobile home.
Well, can we just real quickly just tell the difference, and then we'll let Justin use mobile home when he's actually not right. But the term in 1974, we passed a law about the quality of those homes, and then they gave them to 1976. And
To make sure they wouldn't get blown over.
So anything built after June of 1976 is considered a manufactured home. Those that were built prior to that are considered mobile homes. I actually own a mobile home.
You still
Yeah, it's sitting at
pre-1976.
it's sitting at the lake. And
man.
it's my camp. So, but it's a mobile home. In our context, most people call them all mobile homes. That's what Justin's going to call them today. Just know that we do know the definition here. So almost all of these that are on the market today are really manufactured homes.
No doubt.
And the difference is they are built to HUD standards.
Per region. So
Well,
you have regions throughout the country based on weather types, and they have different construction standards for each region.
And we're going to the other one that's usually lumped in with mobile and manufactured is modular. And modular are actually built to specific standards of the locality. So the local standards, not just
Geographical.
correct,
Like
not just HUD standards, but they are built specifically to code in your area. So they would built to code in Ouachita Parish.
Beautiful.
And they're built a little bit different than manufactured homes. They're actually put together on site, where like whole walls would be shipped in, kind of thing. And it's
confusing to the consumer.
right.
Let's
Most of the time, modular homes you can put them on a slab if you want to. They can be pier and beam, but they're affixed to a permanent foundation that way. So.
But you can get the 3 inspections and can be considered a site-built home, and we'll get to the financing aspect of that in a second. But to finish the conversation about taxes, so a manufactured home. I'm using the term mobile home because I want you to remember the mobility of the home.
Correct.
The home. A manufactured home is actually delivered on site with. It has to have a license plate like a vehicle.
Yeah.
You can't put it on the road without registering it to move it.
Yeah,
Like
and if you have a double wide, each section has that. We'll label
Tag.
it license. It's a tag.
It's a tag.
HUD tag.
And so with that, when you move it onto a piece of property, it's not necessarily considered part of the real estate yet because it's mobile. And when you go to do an active immobilization, what you're doing is you're telling the parish, hey, I know this thing is mobile, has the ability to be mobile, but I'm not going to move it again.
Right.
I'm going to immobilize it. I'm going to take off the wheels, pull off the tongue.
Yep.
I'm going to strap it down, affix it to a foundation, and I'm going to attach it to utilities, put skirting around it, and I don't plan to move it. So you can give me that tax exemption.
Yes, and depending on what you affix it to and how you affix it, it may live up to certain standards for certain types of loans. So if you want an FHA loan on one of these, it's going to have a certain.
They have their specs.
Yes, the skirting on the back is going to have to be wood back. You're not just going to be able to just throw up your skirting, and so there's standards there depending on the loan type, and a lot of people.
Perimeter foundation, all kinds of. It gets into some
Correct.
stuff. Can't be moved more than once. It gets into all kinds of stuff.
That's a big deal. And most people don't know that until they get into the buying process. And so
it's important to know the type when you go to a home. If someone says it's a modular home, you must do your due diligence.
Correct.
Because you could be halfway down the road from a financing standpoint and the appraiser and title company come to a different conclusion that it's actually not a modular home, which is considered. Yeah.
And so in the appraisal standpoint, an appraiser is only going to compare manufactured homes to manufactured homes.
Yeah.
Or that's what they should do. Modular homes actually can be compared to regular site-built homes or
high-end manufactured homes.
Correct.
To create a range of how the market might react to this property that may actually look like a manufactured home, would be a modular home.
Yes. Yeah. People might be surprised how many modular homes we have in our area. And sometimes they'll get listed as site-built homes, so they don't really, once they're there, it's really difficult to tell unless you have documentation or whatever of how it was built. But they are, because of the specs they're built to, it's very, 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 very similar to a site-built home.
Absolutely. So going back to just site-built foundation, we have slab foundations, which
Correct.
is the most common, and then we have pier and beam foundation.
Well, slab build is the most common here. I remember the first home I went to that was not slab built. I didn't have a clue how to deal with it in the wintertime. I was in North Georgia, and I didn't, my house was cold, and they're like, oh, did you close the vents off? And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I could crawl under my house. I had no idea. So that is the most common for Louisiana, or at least in our area. Yeah, in our area, that's the most common, but not all.
Yeah, you get
places.
You get south of Alexandria, they like to build everything up.
Well, they need to.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a look to it, and then there's the water running underneath it.
Yes.
Problem. But it's important when you're looking at a pier and beam house to understand that there's a potential for risk there that doesn't necessarily exist in a slab. Okay. And some of that risk is from a financing standpoint. If you're getting any type of government insured financing, FHA, Rural Development, VA, there are particular minimum property condition requirements that are required for the crawl space. And I'm using that term now. So if you got a pier and beam, the idea is that you can crawl underneath the house. Sure. You can access any plumbing that might be under there, any foundational issues. If there's wiring underneath it, you can access. Sometimes you have floor vents so you can get to the AC in there. And so the idea is that you can crawl underneath the house and get to it. Well, those houses tend to settle over time, especially if they're older homes.
Yeah.
Because they were built a long time ago, 1930s, right? And if that crawl space becomes inaccessible by definition of government insured loan, you can't get it. And so, and the idea is that, a grown person can get underneath there and crawl underneath the house. And sometimes people get clever and they just brick up around the whole crawl space and don't leave access. Those things happen. And so there is a way in which a pier and beam foundation, which has crawl space, can impact your ability to get some type of loans.
Yeah. I've never had that happen before, but that's interesting to know. Seems like
if you have standing water underneath the house, it can stop financing. If you have trash built up underneath the house, that can prevent the viewing from the appraiser to see the crawl space, it can prevent financing. So you just, again, there's an extra due diligence that needs to be done with a pier and beam house.
But a lot of people today are building them to get a certain look. They like their steps going up to the front.
Yeah.
And maybe for flood reasons also, they're building them that way. But there are still homes being built in our area, pier and beam, for that reason.
It's a great, that raised look with the porch coming down. It's
nice.
Nice touch.
Very nice.
Some of us pour 30-inch slabs, but whatever.
Yeah. To each his own.
All right, so we've covered site build, we've covered foundation types for site build, we've covered mobile homes, manufactured homes.
Yep.
Which we mentioned multi-section or double wide, single wides, but they're still manufactured homes. What else we got?
Well, in our area, there's not very many of the rest, but there are a few others, and a couple of those would be the difference between a townhouse and a condo.
Also confusing.
Very confusing, and a lot of times it comes down to what you as a loan officer
Right.
or the bank might say about it. How they view it may depend on whether or not you can get a loan for it or not. I've had multiple pieces of property that we had to get an appraiser prior to
Yeah.
the process to come and determine what they viewed it as.
So let's talk about it.
Okay.
So townhouse and condo, from the outside looking in, I mean, you're at the property and you got your eyeballs on it. You cannot necessarily tell the difference. There's not a architectural term and definition that makes one a townhouse and makes one a condo. Okay.
Correct.
So with that, it has to do with the way the complex
Shared space.
was developed. Okay. So when you have a townhouse or a condo, you're going to have what's called a shared wall or a married wall or a conjoining wall.
Yes.
You're going to, at some point, you own a wall with somebody else. Okay. So that's one thing that makes a townhouse and makes a condo in terms of structurally. Okay. With that, when a townhouse is legally developed, each individual unit has an individual legal description and survey. When a condominium is developed, the entire development has one survey and legal description.
Okay.
Okay? And the common elements are owned together.
Yes.
So condominium, it means that there's common elements that are owned corporately.
Yeah, and
Makes
a lot of
sense?
people will go to the beach. They will stay in a condo,
Mm-hmm.
and there'll be a swimming pool, a gym. There'll be the foyer atrium area,
Yep.
the hallways, those kinds of things. And those are owned by everyone that owns the condo
Yep.
as an HOA of.
And they generally divide it up based on the number of units. So if there's 100 units and you own one unit, then you own that percentage divided by 100.
Right.
And this is why financing can be very, very tricky with condominiums, okay? Real quick, townhouses, they're very much treated like site-built homes. And, you know, the goal is that they're compared to other townhouses. Developers tend to move away from townhouses into condominiums, or they would like to, because of the upfront legal cost to individually survey out and legally describe each one. Okay, it's an additional cost. Recording, filing, all this stuff adds up. And if you've got 100 units, you could be looking at, you know, $100,000. Like
Easy.
It just adds up very fast. Where with a condominium, you just have one filing plus, you know, the association type stuff. Well, in a condominium, you generally have an association, right? And if one investor gets really clever and says, oh, there's 100 units there, I'm going to just start buying them up. And let's say they bought 35 of them. So they own 35% of 100 units.
Right.
Well, then they could just say, I'm not going to pay the HOA.
Hmm.
And then tank the development. And then what happens there is all of a sudden the values drop. And then what does that investor then do? Starts picking up the other units, driving the cost down. And once they own the majority of them, now they have what is essentially an apartment complex with a bunch of rental properties.
Right.
And it puts a lot of risk to the lender who loaned it in the beginning saying, well, this is going to be, you know, an owner-occupied condominium complex where people are going to be here and enjoy and take care of their properties, not rental properties like an apartment. And so to get condominium finances, the association, the HOA, has to be underwritten, just like the property and the borrower have to be underwritten.
Wow.
And so if you have a certain ratio of non-owner occupied properties, condominium fails. If the HOA isn't properly funded and they can't prove it in the books, condominium fails. And so it's very difficult in Ouachita Parish to get condominium financing because there's not a lot of them. And when you go to do an appraisal, especially if you have a high-end condominium complex, there's just not a lot of comps. They don't they haven't existed historically. I haven't done an appraisal in 7, 8, 10 years, something like that. So I can't speak to what's going on necessarily today specifically, but I imagine it's still difficult to get condominium appraisals.
They are selling. We have a couple on each side of the river, usually overlooking the river. That's where people would want to buy a condo in our area.
I can tell you from experience, the reason Phase 2 of River Place condominium didn't get developed, it was because of the difficulty of appraisals.
Sure.
What people were willing to pay couldn't be proven through an appraisal process through condominiums, and it prevented the further scale and development of that.
But they are selling semi-regularly.
Oh, I think they've done a lot better recently than they did. There was a period of time, and then look, they got caught up in the '08 crash too. So, in fairness, that was part of it.
No, there's a lot of people that this appeals to them. There's a shared area that's upkept. You don't have to have a yard.
Oh man!
And so, as long as you pay your monthly fee to the HOA, like they're upkeeping the property, and you have this, a vacation home of sorts overlooking a nice piece of land. And so it is appealing to a lot of different types of people, but there is a difference between a townhouse and a condo.
There is a legal difference, and it does affect financing. It does affect appraised values, and which one appraises for more? Well, when you have more of something, you have better data. It tends to appraise for. It's easier to understand the value. Let me say it that way. Not appraise for more. It's easier to understand the value of a townhouse, at least locally. Now you get on the coast, and there's literally just agents and finance companies that only focus on condominiums, and it's a whole different ball game when you're in that type of market. We're talking local wisdom. We're talking Ouachita Parish, and right here along the Ouachita River.
Yeah, and there's just not very much of that. And even townhouses, there's not just a plethora of those out there. But there are out there if it's something you're interested in.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Some
on the
nice
market
ones,
regularly.
actually.
Yes. There's several, and there's been some built more recently, some newer ones. And so,
they're typically gated and secure. Like you said, the upkeep, that's, the kind of heavy labor aspect of it is all handled by the association.
yeah, no,
It can be
it's
really
nice.
good.
Yeah, no, it can be. All right, Justin, what else do you want to cover today?
Well, let's just lump some in, because I think time-wise we got to be cautious here.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at log houses, when you're looking at anything that's what we consider, not atypical, okay? What I want you to know about those type of houses is that the job of the appraiser to deliver to the lender is whether or not it's conforming.
Yes.
Conforming. And that's a word that would be really good for any of you, the listeners out there, to walk away with and go, hey, is the home I'm buying, is it conforming? Meaning, could I go find another one like it?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you may have difficulty getting finance.
Sure.
And because when the appraiser does an appraisal, before they ever get to the sales comparison approach, they have to answer the question, is this a conforming property or non-conforming? If it falls into non-conforming, you're likely not going to be able to get your traditional financing, and you'll have to get, I'm going to use James' words because I like it, some type of special financing. Yeah. And those things exist out there, and you can get them, but generally it's with terms that you probably don't want as much as you would like the traditional financing.
It's not going to be as good a terms as a traditional mortgage.
Yep, years, rate, things like we see that with manufactured homes. So what type of houses could they be? A-frame houses, igloo houses. We saw one recently that hit the market that was really, really popular that had to do with taking
shipping containers.
Shipping containers, and
it's really nice.
Beautiful, right?
Show that house 3 times in 24 hours to 3 different people.
And I said, well, James, take me to the other shipping container house.
I don't know. I mean, not around here.
It may be out there, but it hasn't sold,
right.
And it's not selling regularly where we can test the market.
But a log home, which would fall into the site-built category,
yes,
we actually do have quite a few of those.
That's not true. That's not true all over the country, though.
No.
So a lender still needs to do, and let me actually point to the appraiser. The appraiser still has to do the job of building the case for why it's conforming in the area that you're in. We live in a kind of a rural, rustic, area,
sure.
And so there's actually an appeal, sometimes a premium given to those properties, and it's the duty and job of the appraiser to prove that in the report. And one of the ways they should be able to prove it is these things sell regularly.
Yes.
I can find a sale in the last 6 months. It's really not a problem.
Yeah. And in log homes, almost all the time you can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they sell a lot.
Yep.
So, but boat houses, tiny homes, and so
camps that are very highly elevated.
Yes.
You start looking. You got pier and beam, and then you have raised houses on piers.
Yes.
And those are Those are all over the place, actually. If you really like dig into it, they're along bodies of water through Ouachita Parish, through Union Parish. So you can find them, but there's still work that has to be done from the appraiser standpoint to determine if it's conforming.
And in our top 5 today, we are going to see a home that is borderline, whether it is conforming or not.
Does it go over the water?
It's sitting on, like the deck goes out over the water.
Oh, yeah. So is it on Caney Lake?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember working on an appraisal of a house where the guy gal, whoever it was, they had a lot, and they just said, well, I'm going to build it out here on the water. And they just built it right over the water.
But I'll say something about this. But they ended up, there was no financing involved.
Yeah.
Then that's where a lot of these properties will end up selling with cash.
Good news, cash can buy anything. For the most part.
Almost.
Cash can buy any type of house.
That's true.
Yeah.
You've got enough of it.
But if you find yourself looking at a house that, like, man, this is different, understand that also can create some difficulty with your traditional, conventional FHA, VA, rural development financing.
Yes. And listing agents can do some upfront help here. When we go and put into MLS, there's a whole list of what type of financing can this property get.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I'm going to be honest, I don't think most
Just
people
call
know.
me. Yeah, just call me and tell me
You're
what
going to
you're
have
looking
to
at.
talk to a lender on some of these at some
I tell
point.
you, and please, buyer's agents, I'm just begging, look in the camera right here. Listen to me. If you are representing a buyer who's buying one of these houses that doesn't fit your traditional housing, especially manufactured home shows up the most, call the lender as fast as possible and tell them what it is. Don't let the appraiser notify the lender that it's a manufactured home or that it's, some type of unusual type of house, because you lose time, you lose weeks, you lose friends, and then you lose financing because you may find out that lender doesn't even do that, or that there's not a way to get an approved appraisal to be able to do that. So please make the lender aware as fast as possible.
Absolutely. Well,
I may have had that happen a few times.
I make my lender aware as quickly as I possibly can. Yes, we have something going. Praise the Lord.
Well, I tell you, we personally don't offer manufactured home financing.
Yeah.
And nothing just like sinks your heart when you get an appraisal in. There it is. It's like, oh, that's a manufactured home. Why didn't anybody tell us?
Yeah. And this probably would go to, if you have a real estate agent, and I would highly suggest
Absolutely.
that as a buyer, you have any it doesn't actually cost you more. It's built into the price of the purchase. You have an agent, they're going to know.
Yeah.
Well, they should know.
They should know. Yeah.
And so they will help point you in the right direction for all of these things. So please get
crucial.
An agent.
Be represented. Get a professional.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, please do. So, all right.
Let's do it.
Top 5.
Let's go.
All right. We are actually not going to see a single house in Monroe or West Monroe
I tell you,
today.
I feel dominated this week.
Yeah, everyone outside of Monroe and West Monroe is all up in the top 5.
It was bound to happen because, man, Monroe and West Monroe was really like, knocking out the top 5 there for a couple of weeks.
Yes, they were. But, all right, number 5 is the house that
The boathouse?
it's not a boathouse. It's a brick. It's not brick. It's cinder block. It's a cinder block home that they built out on the edge of the water.
Do you think they poured concrete inside the cinder blocks? Because I've seen that.
I don't know, but it looks nice. But they are definitely cinder block walls on the inside. But there's another reason why this one probably couldn't get financing, and there's a trailer on the property.
Oh, so it's got a site built and a mobile home together.
Manufactured home, but yes.
That is a problem with financing. You may go, why? Well, you have 2 houses on one piece of property, and this is called single-family residential financing for most loans.
But they got really close to their asking price. It listed at $375, sold for $365, 1,800 square foot main house plus the manufactured home. So Tammy Gunder, Vanguard, good job.
Wow, good job, Tammy.
Yeah.
How many days on market?
Let's see, the 52.
Yeah, and
It
Probably was under contract most of that.
probably was. I didn't look at the contract date on that, but it probably took them that long to figure out how this was all getting
Tell you,
paid for.
Airbnb has changed the way people are buying houses on waterfront property in our area.
Sure.
The vast majority of people I speak with that are looking to get financing on the water have some thought of building revenue through the ownership of a vacation home.
Yeah, people are buying homes believing, hey, I'm going to use this 6 weeks out of this year, and the other,
I'm going to let somebody else pay for it.
yeah, that's.
By the
I
way,
have people talk to me almost every week about that.
Can impact financing.
Actually, should.
So yeah, so in a Fannie Freddie traditional conventional loan setting, which you can get a second home, if you at any point mention that you're gonna give away control of the property to a third party, such as Airbnb, financing is done. Can't do it.
Yeah. So
It becomes a commercial loan at that point.
take that for what you will. All right, number 4. This is in Ruston, and Ruston dominated this week. Jefferson Oaks Drive in Ruston,
Lovely
listed
street.
at $385, sold for $395. So
Battling up there.
Joe Peace with Lincoln Realty got this one sold.
Oh yeah, old Joe.
$178 a foot, 2,200 square foot house. Just a very typical home in the area in Ruston.
Site built?
It's a site built on slab. I have to say that it is on a slab.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jefferson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice slab.
It had like 2 or 3 steps going up
Okay.
to it. So,
Could have been pier beam, huh?
Yeah, it could have
No,
been.
they paid for that look.
Yeah, no, that's they.
Good
built
job, Joe.
Yeah, good job, Joe. All right, this one as close as you're going to get to West Monroe today, and that's in Calhoun,
Ooh.
Calvert Crossing.
There
And
we go.
Calvert Crossing on Hodge Watson Road. It's not actually on the golf course, but number 3 sold for $551,000,
Well, how big was the lot?
1.25 acres.
And not on the golf course.
Not on the golf course.
Must be a very nice house.
And there's something. So this was listed at $535,000 and
Okay.
sold for $551. 3,700 square feet. Mark Phelps and Kathy Van Veckhoven.
Kathy Van Beckhoven, John Ray Realty Agents. Great job.
Yes.
You know, and I want the listener to be reminded, you know, houses selling above list price historically has not been typical. You know, but pre-COVID, it was 97% of the list price is about the average.
Yep.
So to routinely hear that homes are selling above the list price just is still a strong indication of this market.
Yeah, there was a few months in a row there where we were over 100% during COVID. Like so.
Yeah, the list price became the
Sales
suggested starting price.
Correct. Yeah, no, it was very, very much. It is a little bit different today than it was 6 months ago.
I know. I got to host an open house the other day.
What?
That like never happens. The houses are typically under contract before we get
People
to
still
that.
do those?
Yeah.
Great. All right, number 2, back in Ruston, Wells Court, listed for $699, sold for
Okay.
$699.
I don't know where Wells Court is.
Well, it's actually not very far from that last one.
Jefferson Oaks.
So Jefferson Oaks is just a little more north
Okay.
of this.
Interesting. Is it a newer house?
It built in 2013. Yes. So
Oh, I do think I know what subdivision. Do you have a subdivision name?
no. Well, yeah, Toma Lodge.
Yeah, Toma Lodge. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Okay.
It's a very nice neighborhood.
It is. I mean, $200 a foot.
Yeah.
It should be 3,400 square foot. Really nice house.
And what was that sales price again?
$699.
And who is the agent?
The agent is John Melancon.
Melanson.
Melanson. Okay.
I'm so glad you said that. No, John Melanson, great agent, fantastic guy, and not surprised he's in the top 5.
Yes. No. Well, he did a great job. 3/4 of an acre with this. Good job. Number 1 is actually on the other side of the highway from that, and this road is not on the map yet.
Really?
When I tell you this, you're not going to be able to look it up on Google Maps. 214 Bella Lane in Ruston.
Man, Ruston killed it.
It has 5.53 acres.
Okay.
$895,000.
Holy smokes.
Listed at $915,000. House, if you looked at it compared to the second one over in Toma Lodge, the houses compare almost exactly, and they're only a couple hundred square feet difference.
Yeah.
You see the value of 5 acres.
It's the land that drove that up.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, it's only they were within 3 years of each other being built, and then they sold.
And the exterior amenities are the same?
Oh, it almost to the T. I mean, they both have. Now, this one has a nicer swimming pool. Like,
Yeah.
this is a really nice. This is.
Somebody, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a nicer overall property, which the
sales price
sales
reflects.
price reflects. But the houses themselves are very, very similar. So
Very cool.
yeah. No, great week. Another great week. And we'll have another great week next week.
Couple of notes. We're making changes in the podcast, hopefully better for your viewing and listening eyes and ears. Second is that starting next Tuesday, we're going to start the episodes at 8 a.m. rather than 7:45. School's coming.
Yeah.
You know, we need to make sure we have time in the morning with our kids and give you time to do that as well. So we'll start at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays. As always, please leave a comment down below, and let us know if you have any questions about our topic, any topics you would want us to cover in the future. And as always, if you have any mortgage-related needs, I'd be happy to help you. I work at Origin Bank. I'm a mortgage lender. James here, real estate agent extraordinaire, Coldwell Banker, Group 1 Realty in West Monroe.
Give me a call if you need to see a townhouse or condo or
boathouse,
tiny home.
Manufactured home.
I don't know of any tiny homes on the market right now, but hey, if you want to see one, maybe we'll make one appear.
If you want to see a tiny home, go down Northwood in West Monroe on the left-hand side.
Yeah, somebody moved one in.
Yeah, they did. There's one there. So anyways, thank you for watching. It's always a pleasure to be with you each Tuesday. And as always, I hope you have a marvelous day.
See you next week.